Hail to you, brothers and sisters. The title is What Does It Mean to Be a Devotee of Odin? What does it mean to be a devotee of all of any god? First of all, the state of devotion towards a certain deity. It is actually a state of devotion towards an aspect of the universal mind who happens to incarnate in a concept, an archetype, an entity, or all of that into one. So you become more and more like, but at the same time, as a devotee of any aspect of the divine mind, you borrow the agendas of that God. And this is something that the hardest part that nobody really tells you, you start to borrow the agenda of the gods you worship. And let's put it this way, Odin put himself to many trials. He gave himself hard tasks. He went to the Jotun land. And we all know what happened in the Jotun land before he obtained the runes on the Yggdrasil tree. We all know what happened there. And then he made pacts with Loki. He became blood brothers with Loki. So actually, to worship Odin means to worship a highly complex deity that cannot be aligned with only one planet, with only one zodiacal sign, cannot be aligned with he is Fjolnir with many faces. He appoints Hela to Helheim. He is put a task and dies by Fenrir at Ragnarok. So to be a devotee means to borrow agendas. And this is a show of love. If you do not, if you're not aware of the agendas you're borrowing when you're a devotee of a god, you're not a full devotee yet. Some of us who worship Wotan have a heroic spirit and we put ourselves into situations that are impossible just to face impossible tasks, like the Utgard situation with Thor and Loki. When Thor got dressed in a bride dress just to fool the Jotuns. So Nordic mythology, if you integrate it at a personal level, you become a big weirdo for the modern society. That's for sure. So, in all honesty, I do not recommend you to be a devotee of any Norse god until you know what you're doing. Some of the Tursatru guys are worshipping Loki. They are lucky that they don't draw the attention of the real Loki to them. Uh, some proverbs say you're really lucky that the god you pray to is not giving you attention. When actually the gods start to give you attention, you become something else entirely for your own life. And you start to see the world in a different way, to see transformation where it's impossible to see transformation for anyone else. Basically, this is the Norse version of transforming water into wine, or stone into their opposite, into air. Ginar. This is the attribute of the divine name Ginar, to make something out of nothing. This is the idea. So the act of worship, it is an act of being in love, but it's also a deeply transformational act. Because if Odin or the gods start to love you back, you're not going to have an easy life at the beginning, though. So we are speaking here The modern guys are are putting into metaphors a lot of stuff that shouldn't be put into metaphor, or are trying to see codes where there are really no codes. There is codified knowledge in the Eddas, but you need a very keen eye, and you need to think like the guys who actually practice the tradition. And this is really hard because you need a high level of clairvoyance. And to be honest, even after you decode stuff of real practice from the Eddas, you're not gonna waste time with debating with modern practitioners about stuff. You're gonna let everyone practice what they think is best for them, because the practice sometimes is so deep, so transformative, it can screw up with your life. The old Norse practice can bring into your life situations in which you need to prove yourself, because we are not anymore giving the offerings to the old gods as the rune masters of old did, and we don't know how to do it as they did. So then the gods look at you and say, "Man, you're stupid. Let me take you to an experience that can maybe balance the sacrifice or the offering you should have done to me." And then events start to happen, and then life stories unfold. Uh, what develops in a person that worships Odin, let's say in his form as Odin, talent for poetry, a talent for heroic deeds of spiritual nature, like staying up all night at the crossroads doing Gutiset. Come on, who does this in the modern world or age? Utiseta at the crossroads for an entire night, multiple nights in a row. You must have real courage to do this. Even 1 hour at night can scare the shit out of you. I know it happened to me. You don't know what's out there, and what's out there coincides with what's in here also, many times. So I'm saying to you, what does it mean to be a devotee of Odin? Man, what does Odin mean at all to you? The deeper understanding of Odin you have, the deeper the rabbit hole goes. And the most important aspect is the consequences. The consequences are multi layered. They bring happiness, but through transformation. They bring discipline, they bring powers, but through challenge and testing. The challenge and testing aspects of Odin can be found in his rune, TH, in the Hurs rune, right after the O rune. Right after the O rune, we have the Turs rune. Why do you think it's there at all, guys? There is a purpose there, and that is the testing. You cannot have anything good in this world without being tested. And testing means you're putting yourself through trials, even if you don't choose at an aware level. You're entering stupid situations sometimes. Like, let me give you an example of Gurdjieff, who wanted to school his disciple while pretending to be drunk in a train, quarreling the ticket guy for nothing, just to embarrass and break the ego of his disciple. And he did this until they got thrown from the train. So definitely at a deeper, higher self level, we are entering situations very highly aware. The people that maybe are involved in the situations are not really aware of the extent in which you want to go to test yourself. Subjecting yourself to situations sometimes, this is what you decided at a higher level of yourself. But hey, Odin got more knowledge from Mimir, although he lost an eye. Tyr became the god of self sacrifice, although he lost a hand. Baldur made it back from hell. Odur killed Baldur without knowing he kills Baldur, though. But he made it also with Baldur after Ragnarok afterwards. So the Norse stories are full of heroic challenges that end up in an enlightenment state. So why would you want to worship them, guys? Come on. There are more fashionable deities out there, less dramatic, guys. Come on. The Greek mythology has dramatic stuff too, but it's kind of boring. It's more like a telenovela for me, to be honest. It lacks a bit. There are some cringe moments in Greek mythology that I don't like, to be honest. And yeah, the gods can be the same in many aspects, or maybe not. I do believe in tribal gods that are powerful. And even if they are a reflection of a higher, upper, universal mind, they are still individualized there and they have their purpose there, much like Wotan is. So, also the many names of Odin, 200 plus names or something. All names of Odin have behind them a bunch of lore that got lost to time. Some of the names have lore that has not been lost to time, but he didn't earn those names by doing nothing. He did a lot of stuff. He earned a lot of fame during his lifetime. So, can you imagine how eventful his life was? Or how many initiates also? Let's think that Odin is a title, much like Rig is a title. Those initiates that were called Odin, let's say, have gone through challenges, you know, the kind of challenges that, for example, a Jill poet had with his poem, The Head Ransom, with the English king, I believe, yes. So Ejir was in an impossible situation, saved his life with the art of the skaldic poetry, right? And then he had the audacity to still continue the fight with the same king, and he won by using neat stang curses. Quite a fellow, quite a fellow. So the Nordic path is not about peace and love, guys. It has love, it has peace, but it has the dramatic challenges that make you stronger too. Definitely. And Odin, once you start to connect with the real deal, Odin, not the romanticized version of the modern spiritual books about Odin, you start to understand a lot of stuff about spirituality and how it's seen in the Nordic version. You know, when I was a tantric and I renounced my tantric ways and Hindu stuff for a while, then I picked them up again afterwards. I had brought into the Nordic practices some concepts from there. And we all bring, some people like to call themselves pagans, and they bring from Christianity Christian attitudes into the hidden belief. and they start to act as a church, but it's a Nordic church. They don't call it the Old Testament; they call it the Nordic Testament, and the same stuff. And they have the priests who officiate bloods, and it's all over again the same bullshit. And nobody goes to the esoteric side of things. The esoteric side of things, when you are working with yourself and trying to really grasp the real tradition, it's really hard to digest. Nobody wants tests like this. Odin, with your divine consciousness, pass tests over the ocean of ice to defeat your own need. This sounds freaking dramatic, guys, but it's the real meaning of the name of Odin, you know? So it is life, it is real. And in our guild, in our practices, we do real stuff. We practice real stuff. Not going to give too much from the house, but I can say I'm really proud of some people. We are practicing the Skaldic arts because if you're like a really good rune practitioner, you're going to write poetry and you're going to use the runes in the poetry. You know, people here learn how to bless their friends and how to curse their enemies. How to bless and curse is the left and the right hand attached to your body because usually turning the other cheek teaches your enemy to abuse more. But also blessing without alarms, blessing without ego is also good. I truly believe that uh, the real spiritual path needs to serve your everyday life challenges. Uh, there is a saying here in Havamal, I have it around here, it's next to the altar. Odin says, be a friend to your friend and repay gifts with gifts. But also, he says, repay treachery with treachery, also. So, this is like a hard path. This is a path of the person. Odin doesn't say to you, renounce at your person. It says to you, offer yourself to yourself. But this can apply at all levels of your life. Give your light more light. Give yourself more money. Give yourself more wisdom. Give yourself more health. So giving yourself to yourself means a lot of stuff. But if giving yourself to yourself means you need to keep it like this, self made. Anyway, so what does it mean to be a devotee of Odin? Well, there are versions of blots that you can do that are more esoteric than the mainstream ones. There are versions of blood that are very nice, very traditional. You can pick them up somehow from the Eddas if you know how to read, or some sagas there if you know how to read them well, you know. But reading the Eddas or other saga with a purely academic eye, you're gonna miss the good parts. If your eyes are keen about you naturally decodify the symbolic multi-layer language of a text as you go with it, and you have like a lot of ton of experience with multi-layered esoteric language, you're going to have a lot of fun reading the Eddas again and again and again and again. An act of worship is also to read stories about Odin, daily readings of Grimnir's Mal. Good, good thing, a good thing. So a good offering is to read the stories of those guys. Better offering is also to offer to those gods experiences of life that they also went through. For example, keeping your honor in moments of distress when your honor could be tested can be offered to either Heimdall or Thor, for example. So, yes, I don't want to teach you how and what a devotee of Odin means to be, but it's not an easy task. And some of you would say, well, Odin is the aspect of your awareness. And then you wash your hands completely and you go into the symbolic, psychologic, new age bullshit kind of attitude, which I was there a lot of times. What I know is we are speaking here about a real deity, a real entity with likes and dislikes, with big, complicated agendas, like any powerful entity out there. If there is power, there are agendas, guys. If you worship that powerful entity, you're going to have those agendas as yours. Simple as this. Then better go back at your modern version of worship. Think that Odin is some kind of aspect of your own self, which it is actually, but not like you wanna think about it. Like you deny the exterior entity and you're just internalizing Odin until you kill the real Odin outside. This is not Buddhism, guys. This is not if you walk on the path and you see Buddha, you kill the Buddha, like the Zen guys say. Let them be them. Here is here, there is there. I was there a lot. I have other perceptions after some experiences, let's say. So those names are Galdors that initiate state of consciousness. Yes. Are those names also coincide with real entities also? Because at one point you're going to attract the attention of that deity you're working with, or that Galdor you're working with. Fortunately or unfortunately, guys. Because Odin also has a hall called Valhalla. You know the story. Some people like try to make it very modern, metaphoric heroism of spiritual nature that he collects souls there, and the Enheriars are whatever and whatever, and the Valkyrias. Yes, 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 yes. We can interpret them in a symbolic way just for the sake of. I also had this interpretation too. But once you awaken your soul to true clairvoyance, you're not going to be so impressed with your own intellectual arsenal of bullshit anymore. That's the thing, guys. But my recommendation is to keep it cool, keep it like really cool. Just go back to safe assumptions, and maybe I don't know. There are safer pantheons out there. This isn't one of them. This is a hardcore pantheon. These gods mean business here. And Odin does mean a lot of business, and he has a lot of business for sure with his devotees. Yeah. Anyhow, behind me here is Hela, a beautiful lady with two faces. One is old, one is young. Most of us will go to Helheim because we are not heroic or warriors. So basically, Hela is someone you would entertain for a long time after you die. So why not make acquaintance with them, with her sooner, right? Is like she's the Santa Muerte of the Nordic people. Let's put it this way. And she's a nice lady, very peaceful. Odin put her as the chief of Helheim, so I think we can trust her with this job 100%. Anyway, glad of sharing a few thoughts about how I see the picture. If you have any reactions or questions, be a nice person, comment, share, like, and subscribe. I'm giving out some knowledge. I'm giving out some of my own vibe, living experience with a real God. My living experience with a real living God is tremendous. He puts you through challenges that are impossible sometimes, and he sends you experiences that test your metal a lot. And let's put it this way, you almost follow his steps in the chronological order. If you're gonna just read the life of the God you're trying to approach, and you're gonna observe that you're gonna follow chronologically some events, some agendas, because the act of devotion towards a God means you not only borrow the agendas of that God, but also subconsciously you integrate events from that pantheon that can trigger in your life or will trigger most likely. And you're gonna achieve what that God achieved at your own level. You're gonna spiral into some revelations sooner or later if you're really serious. But I'm telling you again, even the name Odin means divine awareness tests itself through the ocean of ice to defeat his own or its own need. So you're subjecting yourself to an ocean of ice to test your willpower while facing your needs or defeating your needs in the process. So, who impaled Odin on that freaking tree? Come on, who's crazy enough to impale himself on a tree in a spear? Yes, I thought so too. Symbolic language. That's the safest word you can possibly say about it. No, he was not impaled by himself. Some people say he was impaled by the Jotuns, servants of the father of Gunlot. Let's put it this way. So he didn't want that experience, but he obtained the runes nonetheless from that experience too. And there are some people and some traditions in which rituals around the tree that are a bit hardcore like this happen as shamanic initiations. So it's not like really a metaphor when it comes to Runatal. It's not really a metaphor, guys. I come to the conclusion that it was not a metaphor at all. But I was disappointed to find out it was not a metaphor. I want it to be a metaphor. It's more spectacular for the intellect, and it's highly shocking for the real self you're gonna. But we are all having our Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil means the tree of test, the tree of challenge. So these guys are big with tests and challenges, guys. If you don't want this, go practice Buddhism or Hinduism or like some kind of more peaceful path. Because definitely, if we look at the stories and the sagas and whatnot, you know, Sigurd had to defeat Fafnir. Then he got to Brunhilda after he defeated Fafnir, got his hoard, eaten the heart of the dragon, drank his blood, started to hear and see stuff that were beyond the normal human senses. And even after that powerful initiation, he still didn't know the runes, and he was initiated into the runes by Brunhilda, who was actually punished by Odin for disobeying Odin with a big deep sleep. In a sense, Odin was responsible also actually for the initiation of Sigurd. Twisted. Anyway, guys, I hope this was fun for you. It was like a small thing here. Hail to you, brothers and sisters. Share, like, and subscribe. A gift for a gift.